Marla, we are here. You hear me? Yes, but we can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Ah, okay, wonderful. So...
I can see myself on the big screen.
Yeah, it's normal. Don't worry. So we're gonna start maybe in 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay.
If it's okay for you.
Do you want me to... Have you enabled me to share my screen?
Ah, I don't know. Yes, it...
Déjà en live, on démarre quand vous voulez parce qu'on a peu de temps à 45-50 on va dire, il faut quitter. Merci beaucoup les amis, on est déjà en live, donc vous prenez quand vous voulez. Merci. Et c'est bon pour le partage d'écran, tu peux lui dire.
So we are you ready? And yes, we're gonna see your screen, don't worry. Share your screen. Yeah, okay. So, hello, good afternoon. Could you introduce yourself and after present your book, please?
Okay. Can you see the slides? Yes, okay.
Can see it. It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good evening to all of you. It's of course morning for me in California, but I'm very pleased to be here to speak about the book that we published in 2019 entitled Striking Iron, The Art of African Blacksmiths. I am Marla Berns, the Shirley and Ralph Shapiro Director of the Fowler Museum, and it's a position that I've held for 19 years. And in addition to being in charge of the museum, I'm also an art historian and a curator with a specialization in the arts of Africa, specifically the arts and cultures of northeastern Nigeria. I was the overall project director of Striking Iron, The Art of African Blacksmiths, an endeavor that was launched in 2011 with a proposal from the artist and MacArthur Fellow Tom Joyce, who was also trained as a blacksmith. He had teamed up with American anthropologist Alan Roberts and art historians Henry Druell and William Dewey, each of whom has done extensive research on the role of blacksmiths and the significance of iron objects in different parts of the continent. Their ambitious goal was to undertake a project that would explore the histories of invention and technical sophistication that led African blacksmiths to transform one of Earth's most fundamental natural resources into objects of life-changing utility, empowerment, prestige, artistry, and spiritual potency. Nowhere else in the world are there more diverse and accomplished forged iron forms than in sub-Saharan Africa. The Fowler Museum eagerly agreed to provide an institutional home for the project and partnered with this team of curators to develop a traveling exhibition and the accompanying scholarly multi-author publication, which I will be speaking about this morning or this evening for you. Both the book and the exhibition represent major contributions to the field of African art studies. And I also became one of the project's 5 co-curators and was on the editorial team as well as an author of the book. I wanted to show you a couple images from the exhibition itself to give you a bit of the flavor of how we were thinking about presenting such a big topic. And we began by creating this tunnel on which projections were made. And it was about the fact that we knew that most of us take for granted the fact that iron keeps us alive and that without it, there would be no Earth as we know it. So this was how the exhibition began, surrounding visitors with the hemoglobin cells that course through our veins, allowing us to live and making blood red. The majority of the 230 objects in the Striking Iron exhibition date from the 19th and 20th centuries and are drawn from the Fowler's own extensive collection or borrowed from 49 US and European public and private institutions. Works were selected to highlight the blacksmith's virtuosity, as you can see with that beautiful oil lamp to the right, and to introduce the ways forged iron objects harness the powers of the natural and spiritual worlds, ensure status and endurance, assist with life's challenges and transitions, and enhance the efficacies of sacred acts such as ancestor veneration, healing, fertility, and prophecy. Blacksmiths' work and participation in community life continues to be indispensable today. The exhibition also traveled to the National Museum of African Art in Washington, D.C., and then to the Musée du Quai Branly, Jacques Chirac, where the museum used the red of iron's appearance on the Earth's crust and in our blood as a bold setting for the objects. Alongside the development of the exhibition, the curatorial team invited a group of 7 advisors to work with us on the project and to offer an even greater multiplicity of voices. The volume's 17 contributors come from the visual arts, art history, anthropology, archaeology, history, and astronomy. Inviting this wide range of interdisciplinary scholarship was a high priority for us, especially given the scope and depth of a subject that encompasses a geography as vast as sub-Saharan Africa. It also includes work from over 100 ethnic groups and a time frame extending from the earliest archaeological evidence of iron smelting and forging around 2,500 years ago up to the present day. And while the majority of the book's authors are based in the US, we also had important contributions by Africa-born and Africa-based scholars Roland Abiodun, an art historian from Amherst College, Shadrach Chirikuri, archaeologist from the University of Cape Town, and Issei Dugnon, anthropologist from the University of Bamako in Mali. In addition to first-rate scholarship, our goal was to reproduce high-quality studio photographs of all the objects in the exhibition and to incorporate as much relevant field photography and archival photography to contextualize the objects in use and to document blacksmiths at work. Fowler publications are conceived as compendia to exhibitions, but also as standalone volumes that make visible the aesthetic achievements of the world's peoples and the contributions of those who seek to understand and interpret them. I believe the volume's strength lies in its comprehensiveness and its diversity of perspectives. Its 4 main sections move from chapters that take broad philosophical, historical, economic, and performative overviews of iron's importance and the accomplishments of smelters and smiths, to chapters with more circumscribed regional analyses of iron in its cultural contexts, to interleaves that offer a narrower focus on certain charismatic objects that dramatically embody iron's significance. I'd like to begin by walking you through the book and highlighting some of the ways we have tried to achieve our own ambitious goals. I begin by bringing back an image from the exhibition in Paris, where we not only showed the images of hemoglobin cells, but also this footage of solar flares taken with sophisticated instruments as explosions of the sun's energy, which we contrasted with in the next set of images the fire in a blacksmith's forge, the burning embers that allow him to heat the iron in order to work it into objects. The first chapter, one of the first things we wanted to write about was the importance of iron in the cosmos and on Earth. And so we invited a very highly regarded astronomer here in Los Angeles, Ed Krupp, who reminds us that more than 10 billion years ago, exploding stars and black holes in distant galaxies seeded the cosmos with iron. Some of it wound up here on Earth, with us, around us, and in us. And this Western scientific perspective stands in contrast to our project's efforts to understand the ways indigenous knowledge systems in Africa gave rise to its Iron Age, which forever changed the course of human history on that continent. What observational processes were mastered in order to smelt iron ore at such a high temperature to create malleable iron blooms, which could then be worked with specially designed tools and techniques to create forged iron objects of utility and symbolic meaning. The brilliant processes invented by smiths as long as 2,500 years ago are still in use today. The book then begins with a major section that explores these big ideas about iron's essences and efficacies. A chapter on African cosmologies teaches us that there are local stories that cultures develop to explain certain wondrous acts, such as smelting and forging iron. Here, too, they allow us to bring African voices and systems of thought to bear on cultural understandings. In Alan Roberts' chapter, he offers by example the story of how the Dogon of Mali understand the perils of life living in such a remote landscape and the beginnings of human time on Earth. One well-known account describes the first people to populate Earth as proto-humans named Nomo, who lived in the above world with the supreme deity Amma. One of these Nomo had the audacity to steal a piece of the sun from Amma to bring fire to Earth. And with this fire, the Nomo also became the very first blacksmith. And as a blacksmith, he supplied the tools to plant the crops and to sustain human life. The ceremonial adze that you see to the right depicts the Nomo descending to the earth along the handle of this beautiful ceremonial object. Candace Goucher, an archaeologist and historian, writes that iron smelting was a super transformative act, likened to giving birth by some cultures who describe it this way. And while the smiths are always men, the birthing of an iron bloom suggests a female gendered agency, and among some people, such as the Chokwe of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the clay smelting furnace takes a clear female form, as you can see in this photograph and drawing, where the furnace has breasts, an umbilicus, and even scarification markings. Clay tuyères penetrate the furnace to bring life-giving air to the fire to achieve the temperatures necessary to create the iron blooms. So this knowledge of smelting was not only seen in gendered terms, but in supernatural terms, obeying the laws of the unseen world. Henry John Druel talks about one of the most crucial points of the Striking Iron project, that iron figures prominently as a medium that activates spiritual powers. The blacksmith, as master of the transformative processes of making iron into culture's tools, weapons, and poetic accoutrement, is often charged with making the very objects used to invoke, represent, and mediate deities and other mediums of supernatural agency. And the beautiful ritual acts that you see on the right, carved by a Yoruba artist who may have also been a smith, shows how the axe possesses the life force of Ashe and the life force of the artist who forged it, embodying his wisdom, but also making it an effective object in both its beauty and its spiritual utility. In northern Nigeria, we find these extraordinary objects that are actually wands used to bring the rain. And they are forged in these multiple elements to emulate flashes of lightning and the slither of snakes. Rainmakers plant these wands, which are about, 30 centimeters high, into the earth so that the power of the earth can be drawn up and sent to the heavens to bring the rain. And of course, without sufficient rain, crops would not grow. And so it was the forged iron tools that facilitated agriculture and sustenance. So iron then becomes this potent medium used to do other things, like bring life-giving rains to the cultures that use these kinds of special rain wands. Tom Joyce's next chapter on the potency of a hammer's blow brings his specialized knowledge as a maker and his decades of studying the iron objects forged by African smiths to his eloquent and insightful chapter. Trained as a blacksmith, he brings us special knowledge about the virtuosity of a smith. In this sequence of images, you can see the work of the blacksmith. On the far left, he's holding a large basalt hammer and bringing it down with the force of his shoulders and back to precisely the right place to begin to shape the hoe blade that you see completed to the right and in the drawings above it. The virtuosity of the smith is testified by some of these extraordinary objects, including this staff that's meant to enhance the authority of a local elder, as you see in the field photograph to the right, and the baskets that are formed by forging all these small elements and then forge welding them together shows you the labor and the specificity of the blacksmith blows in order to create something so beautiful, along with the wrappings of copper to enhance the power of this piece. There also is beauty in the simple tools of the forge, the elegance of these tongs that are intended to protect the blacksmith from the heat of the iron that he holds with these tongs as he hammers. And you can also see that these tongs, because of their important role in forging itself, then can be used to enhance the ritual objects to the right, which are made by the Dogon. And in the necklace to the far right, this was worn to actually protect a woman and her successful childbirth. So you can see how the efficacy of an object in making and forging iron then gets transferred to someone who might wear it. And I include this slide taken by Tom Joyce of a blacksmith at work to show you the way that the smith wields that hammer and brings it down with incredible precision onto the iron that's on a large stone anvil. And even the hammer, the tools, these hammers, are exquisitely shaped and formed with, of course, the patina of use, and especially as you see on the one on the right. And these pages in the book illustrate how we're able to tell iron stories with images as well as words. and how beautifully curated pages bring tremendous respect to the techniques and artistry of African smiths. And one of our key messages in the book and in the exhibition is the way the smiths' virtuosic manipulation of the medium has led to iron's efficacy and essentiality in so many other cultural contexts. The book then moves to this series of regional studies. And what we wanted to do was to bring in the specific expertise of the project participants, who have all conducted research in the field. This first chapter is written by Roland Abiodun, who himself is a Yoruba scholar, and his family belongs to the deity Ogun, who is the god of iron among the Yoruba. And he's written this chapter with Henry Druel, who's done decades of field research among the Yoruba of southwestern Nigeria. And so this chapter looks to Ogun and Gu, the god of iron, and the god's power as it's represented in various objects. But what you see to the right is this spectacular forging of a staff that is used by diviners who can help make things happen. And they facilitate that both with the iron and the representation of birds that allow communication between this world and the other world. Iron also figures prominently among peoples living in northeastern Nigeria, where I did my own field research. And you can see in this spread these amazing 90 centimeter tall shields that are actually forged out of sheet metal imported into Africa now for a long time by Europeans. But the beautiful textured surface was created by the smith who pounded it from the inside to create these fine lines of bumps. And the shields, no longer useful for warfare, have been transferred to a purpose having to do with the initiation of young men into adulthood. And you can see it in the field photo, which is actually my own field photo. I did my field research in northeastern Nigeria, leaning against the house of a Fali chief priest. But the really interesting thing about this, and I think you can see it on the forehead of the woman to the right, is that those bumps on these shields held by men also emulate the scarification markings made with sharp iron razors into the skin of women and also some men to mark their social belonging and their identity as adults. So there's this beautiful correlation between iron objects and people's bodies. Moving down into South Central Africa, a chapter by historian Colleen Krieger focuses on the way that iron enhances and announces the power of leaders. Kuba royals, who you see to the right, have many forms of regalia, but I think you can see tucked into the voluminous skirts that this leader wears is this iron blade, this ikul, which has been taken out of practical use and made into this gorgeous symbol of the Kuba chiefs and Kuba king's authority. The last section of the book is on African ironworking and change. And it was really important to us that we ensure that readers know that the art of the blacksmith is not just a thing of the past. Using gorgeous field photographs taken by Tom Joyce in 2017, this photo essay or portfolio offers us intimate and amazing views of the abundant forging of sheet and scrap metal into useful objects in the large Bamako market in Mali, where over 1,500 metalsmiths are registered to make work and sell their wares. Fowler exhibition publications make space for these portfolios, which use full-page photographs to tell the stories of particular objects. And in this case, we used the portfolio to present a number of pieces that didn't find their way into specific chapters. And there were many blades in the exhibition because forging ritual objects in the form of what were once practical functional weaponry is very common among so many different groups. And you can see how the smith expressed his virtuosity with shapes, with very fine chasing of designs, mixing metals, really taking the opportunity to express their technical and aesthetic mastery of these amazing forms. Striking iron also features the Fowler's use of the small chapter or interleaf, which typically focuses on charismatic objects such as this famous forged representation of Gu, the fawn god of iron, now on view at the Louvre. And this piece is larger than life size. It was forged from recycled sheet and bar iron traded from Europe and produced by blacksmiths of the Akati family. Colleen Krieger tells the story of Gu's journey from what was the kingdom of Dahomey and once captured by the French army, and the kingdom was taken apart. This object was then taken back to Paris and entered the Musée Ethnographie de Trocadero in 1894. So over many of the intervening decades, Gu has been photographed with and without his sword and bell. And so in the end, he now stands in the Louvre in the Pavillon des Sessions, where I suspect it won't be very much longer, given the urgency of restitutions. So I think this book epitomizes the Fowler's approach to publishing, where we seek an integration and balance between images and texts in order to tell complex stories. This spread tells the story of this amazing Benin Benin sword, also made from sheet metal that's been perforated with these beautiful designs and has a handle at the top, which would be again carried underneath, and the holder of this sword could twist it and twirl it, both in performance and in display. And you see on the right how the new Benin Oba, or king, is holding that sword at the moment when he's inducted into office. These Asen ancestral altars made by the fawn of the République du Benin have amazingly forged small elements which are then welded onto this table at the top. These are altars to the dead. They represent important people who have passed away. But it was really significant to present alongside it this view of an Asen shrine, where one ancestor is in the company of many others, and a priestess offers libations in order to secure their beneficence and goodwill. And then finally, this amazing story about currencies. Currencies are forged in many different shapes, and they are systems of value across sub-Saharan Africa. And among the Topoke, they actually create these currencies that are more than life size, as you can see in the field photograph to the right. And they were used primarily for marriage exchanges. When a bride left her parents' household and moved into the groom's family paid a bride wealth to the bride's family, and did so in denominations that were counted in pieces of iron currency. And below you see what's a matrimonial pathway and the new bride would walk in between those two rows of iron currencies. I think there are more than 200 in that photograph, just to show how important that particular marriage was.
Thank you very much, Marla. It's a beautiful book. It's like a Bible. And congratulations also for your presentation. It was perfect, very complete. And I think we don't have anything to add finally here in Perpignan. Do you have any questions? No, I think you said everything. So I don't know if, no question. I don't know if you just want to add something to conclude, or...
Yes, I wasn't quite finished, but I don't think I need to give you the statistics about the book and the pages. I think you have all of that. But I think I just wanted to say at the end that this book is, as I said at the beginning, both an important volume that stands on its own, and I should also say that the Quai Branly translated the book into French, and Frappé le Fer, but it's only about half the length of this book. So it's really stands as the most comprehensive treatment to date of this particular subject. And we were very important to have produced a book that allows audiences of many types and many levels of familiarity with the subject to learn a lot, because we don't write the essays only for a scholarly audience, but for everyone. So it's very important to us that we produce these books that are accessible, that are beautiful, and that stand the test of time. So I thank you very much for selecting it as a finalist in the competition. We're very honored by that having happened, and I'm very happy that I was able to zoom in, and I'm very sad that I'm not in Perpignan with you.
Yes,
but of course, I can't even come into France at the moment. So I hope you all stay safe. Since I know that the
we
pandemic
hope you are safe also, and maybe we hope to see you next year in June. We don't know.
Well, I hope so, because I was there in 2012 and it was wonderful.
Okay. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day in California. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks to you.
Bye.
Bye.